I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 7 years now. We got married young, right out of college. Things weren't perfect, but they worked mostly. She was always a bit bitchy, quick to snap and argue over the smallest things, but I thought that was just her personality. Women like Lisa tend to be a little difficult, right? Or at least that's what I told myself. Our relationship was pretty normal on the surface, but I started noticing little signs that something was off. She was more distant lately, more secretive about her phone. She'd hide her texts even more than before, and when I'd ask about who she was talking to, she'd brush me off, say she's just catching up with her girlfriends or some work thing. I figured it was just her being her usual bitchy self. She'd get defensive and accuse me of snooping. Honestly, I didn't want to believe she was cheating. I mean, we'd had our fights, but I thought deep down she loved me. Plus, she always claimed she was learning the game of fantasy football to connect with me better. I bought that at first. She was trying right. The night of the draft party was supposed to be fun. I'd organized a big get-together with my buddies Tom, Jeff, and some others. We did it every year, and this time, Lisa said she was coming to hang out, learn the game, and support me. I was pretty excited. I even bought her a jersey of her favorite team to make her feel included. As the night went on, everyone was drinking, joking around, and making pics. Lisa was acting a little strange, but I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just shy or tired. She kept making snide comments about how she was learning the ropes and that she'd be the best fantasy girl out there. Then I decided to step away for a minute to grab more beer. I told her I'd be right back, and I headed to the kitchen. That's when I saw her, coming out of the bathroom, her face flush, hair a little messy. She was wearing that same bitchy smirk she always had when she was hiding something. I didn't think much of it at first. It was just a bathroom break, right? I went to get the beers, and when I came back, I noticed her phone sitting on the table. I normally wouldn't snoop, but I'd been feeling uneasy all night. Something told me to check. That's when I saw the messages. They weren't just friendly banter. They were explicit. Texts full of shit I never thought Lisa would do, talking about sex, about how much she wanted him, about how she'd do anything to see him again. Her commissioner in the fantasy league, Mark, I think his name was. That's when everything hit me like a freight train. All those late-night texts, the secretive attitude, her getting ready to learn the game. She'd been cheating with Mark the whole time. Not just that, but the tone of her messages was raw, hungry. She was practically begging for him. I stood there, stunned, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. The room spun. I didn't say a word right away. I was just frozen, staring at her phone. I didn't want to believe it, but the proof was right there. I knew I had to confront her. I grabbed her phone and called her out loud in front of everyone. Her face turned red and she tried to deny everything, calling me paranoid, saying I was blowing things out of proportion, accusing me of being insecure. But I knew better. I'd seen too much. There was no way she could spin her way out of that. When I asked her directly if she was cheating, her bitchy little smirk disappeared for a second, and she looked at me with those eyes, defiant, contemptuous, like she thought she was smarter than me. She kept lying, saying it was just stupid messages. That Mark was just a friend, that she was learning the game to connect with me better. I didn't believe her. How could I? The truth was right there, plain as day. She'd been sneaking around, lying to my face, pretending to be interested in me while she was in bed with her fantasy football commissioner. I felt like I was losing my mind. Everything we had built, everything I thought was real, it was all crumbling in that moment. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw the bitch underneath the woman I thought I knew. That's when I realized I'd been played for a fool. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the scene, her face, the texts, that smug look she gave me when she was lying. I felt sick. I wondered how I missed the signs, how I let her get away with it for so long. She was always bitchy, always quick to snap, but I thought that was just her personality. Turns out she'd been hiding a whole different person beneath that. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was out there screwing someone else behind my back. The next morning I woke up feeling numb, but I knew I had to confront her again, face to face. I found her in the kitchen, pretending to be innocent, pouring coffee like nothing had happened. I didn't hold back. I told her I saw everything that I knew about Mark, about her lying, about her sneaking around. Her reaction was classic. She gasped, then started with her usual bullshit. She told me she was learning the game, that it meant nothing, that she only did it because she was trying to connect with me better. She said she was sorry, but her eyes said otherwise. Sorry didn't cut it anymore. I felt my anger bubbling up inside, but I also felt something else, hurt, deep, raw hurt. She started throwing insults, calling me insecure, saying I was overreacting, that I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat. She accused me of not trusting her, of trying to control her. That's when I finally saw her for what she really was: selfish, manipulative, and completely indifferent to what I was feeling. I told her I needed space, that I couldn't just pretend everything was fine anymore. I told her I was done pretending, done ignoring the signs. That's when she stormed out, bitching about how I was overreacting, how I was ruining everything because I couldn't handle her trying to connect with someone else. I sat there on the couch, staring at the broken pieces of what I thought was my life. I was angry, devastated, and confused all at once. I kept asking myself, why? Why would she do this? Was I not enough? Was I so terrible that she needed to cheat? The answers didn't come easily. Instead, I just sat there feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. I was furious at her, furious at myself for not seeing it sooner, furious that I'd been played so effortlessly. In the days that followed, I kept replaying everything. I started noticing more signs: her sudden phone obsession, her dismissive attitude when I tried to talk about us, her sneaky trips to the bathroom during our parties. I even found her deleting messages later, trying to cover her tracks. She claimed she was learning the game, but I saw through her lies now. She was a bitch about everything, always quick to turn blame, always lying, never owning up. I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. It was clear she didn't respect me or our marriage. The betrayal cut so deep, I wondered if it was even possible to repair this, or if I should just cut my losses and walk away. I wasn't sure what I'd do next. Part of me wanted to confront her again, demand the truth, tell her I knew everything. Part of me wanted to pack my bags and leave for good. I was hurt, yes, but also angry. I felt like I'd been a fool for so long, and now I had to face the reality that my wife, who claimed to love me, was out there in the bathroom, getting fucked by her fantasy football commissioner while I was just trying to have a fun night with my friends. That's when I realized this wasn't just about a stupid affair. It was about respect, trust, and knowing who the hell I was married to. And honestly, I was starting to think I deserved better than a woman who lied and cheated her way through our marriage. After the initial shock and fury wore off, I started to think about what to do next. Sitting there in my own house, feeling like a complete idiot, I realized I couldn't just pretend this didn't happen. I couldn't just sweep it under the rug and go back to pretending she was the woman I married. Deep down, I knew I had to do something, something to make her understand that I wasn't going to be played for a fool. That's when the idea of revenge started to form in my head, cold, calculated, and fitting for how she'd betrayed me. I didn't want to just kick her out and call it a day. That was too easy. I wanted her to feel the pain, the betrayal, what I was feeling, 10 times over. If she thought she could cheat on me, then she needed to understand how it felt to be on the receiving end. I started coming up with a plan. I'd find a way to make her regret what she'd done, to show her that she couldn't just manipulate her way out of this. I wasn't going to be the guy she walked all over anymore. First, I decided to gather evidence. I dug into her phone more, reading through her deleted messages. I found some more texts with Mark, some that she hadn't even deleted yet. I took screenshots, stored them securely on my laptop. I also looked at her recent bank statements, found a few transactions that didn't add up. A hotel stay, some secretive dinners. She was sneaking around even more than I thought. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I was paying attention. I knew I needed proof, solid proof, to make her understand what she'd done. Next, I thought about how to confront her again, not just with anger, but with a strategy. I knew from experience that women like Lisa, bitchy, manipulative, only responded to strength. I decided I'd play it cool, act like I didn't know the full story, but I'd drop hints. I wanted her to realize I was on to her without outright screaming at her. I'd make her feel guilty, make her question everything she thought she knew about herself and about me. That way she'd see that I wasn't some pushover anymore, I was a threat. Over the next few days, I kept my cool. I made small, controlled moves, asking her questions in a calm, deliberate way. "Who was in the bathroom with you the other night?" I'd say. Or, "I noticed you took a lot of calls late at night. Everything okay?" I watched her reaction closely. She'd get defensive, try to spin stories, but I didn't fall for it. I stayed quiet, letting her squirm. I wanted her to realize that I knew everything and that I wasn't going to let her keep lying. Meanwhile, I started planning a more direct approach. I wanted to catch her off guard, to make her realize that her manipulations wouldn't work anymore. I even considered setting up a hidden camera in the bedroom or somewhere she wouldn't notice, just to catch her in the act if she kept sneaking around. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to go that far. I just wanted her to see that I was serious, that I wasn't going to be a doormat anymore, waiting for her to come clean. All this while, I felt a mixture of feelings: anger, betrayal, sadness, even a little shame. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far. Was I really that blind? Did I miss all the signs? Sometimes I'd catch myself blaming her, but other times I'd blame myself for not trusting my gut sooner. It was a mess of emotions all swirling together. But one thing was clear: I was done playing nice. She needed to understand that her actions had consequences, and I was going to make sure she felt them. If she thought she could cheat without repercussions, she was dead wrong. A few days passed, and I kept up the act of calm, collected suspicion. Inside, I was boiling, but I had to keep my cool. I didn't want her to suspect I was onto her completely. I kept probing, asking questions that sounded innocent but were designed to push her into a corner. Every time she tried to brush me off, I'd remind her subtly that I'd seen enough to know she'd been lying. Her facial expressions, her tone, all signs she was losing control. But I needed something more, something concrete. That's when I decided I'd set a trap. I went online and bought a small recording device, nothing obvious, just a tiny thing I could hide in the bedroom. I knew she'd try to sneak away again, maybe to the bathroom or her phone. I needed her to slip up, to say something that would confirm everything I suspected. I told myself I wasn't doing this out of spite. Well, maybe I was a little, but mostly I just wanted the truth. I wanted her to own up, to be honest about what she'd done. If she loved me, she'd confess. If she didn't, then I'd have the evidence I needed to finally walk away. The night I set the device, I felt like a coward, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I knew I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I placed the recorder carefully, then waited and waited. Sure enough, a few hours later, I heard footsteps, the bathroom door shutting, then her voice. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Her bitchy tone, full of contempt, talking to Mark on the phone, telling him how much she missed him, how she wanted to see him again. They discussed meeting that same night at some hotel she'd supposedly booked for her sister's birthday, but I knew better. She was planning to meet her lover. Hearing her say those things, it was like a punch in the stomach. I felt rage, but also a strange numbness. She, my wife, was out there, actively betraying me, lying to my face, and thinking she could get away with it. I pressed stop on the recorder and sat there in disbelief. This wasn't just some mistake or a momentary lapse. This was full-blown betrayal, lying and cheating behind my back, all while telling me she was learning the game to connect better. She told me she loved me, and yet she was planning to screw her fantasy football commissioner. It was so sickening I didn't know whether to scream or cry. That night, after I listened to the recording a dozen times, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I had the proof I needed. I needed to confront her one last time, this time with everything laid out on the table. If she was going to lie again, I'd be prepared. And if she genuinely cared, she'd have to face the consequences. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. I was finally taking control, and I was done being the fool. I went to bed that night, feeling exhausted but also strangely relieved, because I now knew the truth and I was ready to face whatever came next. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. I was going to tell her exactly what I knew, exactly how I felt, and then decide if I could ever look at her the same way again, or if I'd finally had enough. The next morning, I woke up early, my mind already racing. I knew I couldn't delay any longer. I had the proof. I had the recordings, I had my resolve. I decided I'd confront her before she could spin any more lies or try to manipulate her way out of it. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I had caught her dead to rights, and that I was done playing. The fool, I waited until she was in the kitchen pretending to be innocent while she cooked her breakfast. I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling with anger. I told her I knew everything about her texts, her meetings, her plans with Mark. I played the recording for her on my phone. The sound of her own voice saying those filthy things made her freeze. Her face went pale, and her bitchy smirk was gone in an instant. She looked like a cornered animal, and for a second I thought she might break down. Her reaction was classic. She started to lie again, claiming she was drunk, or that it was just a fling, or that Mark was just a friend with benefits. She was trying to deny it, but the words sounded hollow now. I could see right through her. I told her it was over, no more lies, no more hiding. I told her she'd betrayed everything we built, and I wasn't going to forgive her. Her face twisted into that bitchy, defiant look she always had when she thought she could manipulate her way out. She told me I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid, and that I was ruining everything over some stupid texts. I told her she had no right to call me paranoid after I'd caught her red-handed. I told her I'd been patient, that I'd given her the benefit of the doubt for too long. But now I knew she'd been lying to my face, pretending to be someone she's not. I told her I was done, and I wanted her out of my house. That's when she finally exploded, calling me controlling, insecure, and accusing me of trying to ruin her life because I couldn't handle her being happy with someone else. She stormed around, screaming, crying, calling me all sorts of names, but I didn't care anymore. I'd made my decision. As she left the room, I realized I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Part of me wanted to scream at her, tell her how much she hurt me, how much I hated her for betraying everything we stood for. But another part knew it was over. I couldn't keep pretending she was still the woman I married. I'd been played, used, and discarded. I thought about all the good times, all the promises, all the dreams we shared. It was hard to let go, but I knew I had no choice. The damage was done. That afternoon, I started packing her things. I didn't want to be around her anymore, not after what I'd discovered. The house felt cold and empty without her bitchy attitude. I kept replaying the moments, the lies, the betrayal. I felt angry, hurt, betrayed, like someone I trusted had turned into a complete stranger. But amid all that, I also felt an odd sense of clarity. I realized I'd wasted too much time trying to fix something that was already broken. She chose her lies over me, and there was no coming back from that. As she drove away later that evening, I watched her leave with a strange sense of finality. The woman I thought I knew was gone. I was left with a mess of feelings, anger, sadness, relief, confusion. I knew I had to rebuild my life from scratch now. I had to find a way to move on, to heal, and to learn that sometimes the worst betrayal comes from the people you love the most. And that lesson, it's one I won't forget anytime soon. In the days that followed, I felt like I was in a fog. The house was eerily silent without her bitchy comments or her constant sneaking around. I'd wake up in the morning and feel this strange mix of relief and grief. Relief because I finally knew the truth, and grief because I realized I had lost not just a wife, but a part of myself I thought I knew. The betrayal cut deep, and even though I'd caught her red-handed and had my revenge, the pain was still very real. Trust, once shattered, doesn't come back easily. I kept asking myself why I let it get this far, why I ignored all the signs, and why I believed she was capable of such betrayal. I started to rebuild my life slowly. I went back to work, poured myself into my hobbies, and spent more time with friends who supported me. They kept telling me I was better off without her, that I deserved better. And honestly, I think they were right. I learned a lot about myself through this mess. Lessons about trust, manipulation, and how someone can hide who they really are behind a pretty face and bitchy attitude. I realized I'd been blind for too long, that I'd ignored the warning signs, and that I trusted her because I wanted to believe in the best of her. But she proved me wrong. Looking back, I see now that her lies and cheating weren't just about physical betrayal. They were about control and manipulation. She wanted to keep me in the dark, to make me doubt myself, to feel like I was the crazy one. But I refused to be that guy anymore. I refused to let someone using me, lying to me, make me question my value. I've learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't about revenge at all, it's about walking away and moving on stronger. That's what I've done. I also learned that self-respect is everything. I could have stayed and fought, but in the end, I knew I'd be better off without someone who could lie so effortlessly and treat me like a fool. I hope, someday, I'll find someone who respects me, who's honest and loyal. But for now, I'm focusing on healing, on rebuilding my trust in myself. This experience has been a brutal wake-up call, but it's also been a catalyst for growth. I see now that I deserve honesty, respect, and someone who truly cares. I won't let anyone treat me like dirt again, and I'll be damned if I let a bitch like Lisa destroy my sense of self-worth. The pain will fade and I'll move forward a little wiser, a little more cautious, but finally free from the illusion I once believed was real. That's the end of my story. It's not a pretty one, but it's real. And if anyone out there is going through something similar, I'll say this. Trust your gut, look for the signs, and don't be afraid to walk away from someone who doesn't deserve you. Because at the end of the day, the only person who truly matters is yourself. And you owe it to yourself to be treated with respect.